Sunday Live with you here on the Average Joe Sports Show. That is Bill Doleman, the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Fellas, no game for Nebraska to talk about this week, but a whole lot of, assessment from the first four ball games. It is now, well, I guess we can call it Michigan State week. And what a rundown of college football implications in the Big Ten and beyond yesterday. Awesome ball games. Did you guys fulfill your wish of being able to see college football from start to finish yesterday? Did you catch all the games you wanted to?
I did take a little nap in the first half of the primetime games. I missed about a quarter there. Nothing too significant, just a little 40-minute nap. So didn't catch all of the football, but I caught everything I wanted to catch. Great day of football. USC and Illinois kind of set the table, along with that Georgia Tech Wake Forest game. That set the table for a beautiful day of college football. 2:30 games were just all right, but then primetime, man, it delivered.
It was good. I mean, just back and forth with Illinois and SC, with SC really kind of showing their explosiveness, but Illinois doing their thing to get the walk-off. And then couldn't you just feel the rest of the Big Ten pointing and laughing and screaming at Penn State? I was watching the end of that, and Penn State, to their credit, and they were down, 17-3. They rally to tie things up, take the lead in overtime. Oregon answers, gets it to overtime, and then the dreaded Drew Aller interception in overtime. It's like, well, we've seen this movie before. And it was rough. Just nothing special from Drew Aller. Not all on him, obviously, but I mean, that was a big time win for Oregon in that environment. That doesn't happen real often, that you go lose a night game if you're Penn State in a whiteout.
Yeah, I think that's such an Oregon win. Like the comments that Lanning made after the game, they have a whole different mentality. I'm wondering, there's a lot of things about Franklin, but I'm wondering if he thought at all of going for two when they scored at the end of regulation,
right?
Knowing that his defense was kind of worn down and he had a little momentum going. He was at home. And then, there's going to be another question about his quarterback didn't play well again in a big game. And would they have been better off if he would have gone pro and they would have been able to keep the quarterback that's dealing at Mizzou right now, who was their backup? I mean, it's, the narrative is kind of written about James Franklin, but I think the story is a little bit more about Oregon. Oregon had full control of that game for a while until that, that final long drive by Penn State, which it almost acted like they thought they just needed a field goal instead of a touchdown. But it was a great day of college football, man. It was, when you get in a bye week and you get to sit around and watch football and you're hoping, please deliver. And it did. And it kind of showed, I think, in my opinion, there's a lot of parity in college football. I mean, that any given Saturday stuff, I think, is real. And the playing field has been leveled a little bit. But it's tough to sit here today and everybody agree on who is the number one or number two or number three team in the country right now. And we all are like in lockstep about, here's Ohio State, here's Miami, here's blank.
Well, let me say God bless the inventor of the catch up through key plays on YouTube TV. And I mentioned the quad split. And they've also, once you make the switch from one screen to the other, the audio immediately also makes the switch. So there's no delay in that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, let's face it. That's the way you watch games. And I caught up like 3 games in like 15 minutes. So that was great. I think that they could put a montage together of James Franklin's post-game reaction, walking off the field, losing a big game at a whiteout or something. It's just that same look of disillusionment that it happened again. They're 5-13 against top AP ranked teams or something like that. And it just always seems in a game. I'm not surprised they lost. I was surprised they came back. Good on them for showing the heart, and Aller's scramble on 3rd down and 9. I'm thinking Nebraska doesn't have that at the quarterback position on that long drive. But I think you could go back in the entire tenure of James Franklin, and in a big game, it's the same look of what just happened. But look, they'll be a playoff team. They might lose again because they got to play at Ohio State, who was really impressive in beating Washington the way it did, just methodically, I thought, yesterday.
Their defense looked great.
Defense looked great. They just looked so – that may have been the most understated game of the day yesterday, was the way they dismantled Washington in Seattle, right?
Surgical.
Nobody's talking about that game. And that may have – as many teams are going to move into the top 5, I think that solidifies Ohio State as the clear number 1.
Yeah, and to your point, that was the game I was probably most looking forward to yesterday.
Yeah.
Was Ohio State and Washington. It ended up being probably the most boring football game of the day because of the way Ohio State just handled Washington's offense. Washington had a couple drives in the first half, but after that Ohio State defense was on point. And Ohio State, once they kind of, I don't want to say abandoned the run, but once they kind of let Julian sling it around a little bit more, there was nothing Washington could do.
Yeah, and Washington had chances in the red zone and they came up empty, or they had to kick field goals. And man, Matt Patricia, I think he's found a home in college as a defensive coordinator. And, they're just, I think I was also impressed by Indiana. And I know you guys are going to roll your eyes and go, it was 20-15. They were a favorite, not a huge favorite in Iowa City. Is Iowa played that game really ugly, and that style where they slowed the game down, and Indiana kind of got sucked into it. But I think what I learned about Indiana yesterday is Indiana can play Iowa's style.
Mm-hmm.
And Indiana might be able to play a bunch of different styles because they were physical in that game. And, they had a quarterback at the end that made some plays. And who would have thought it doesn't happen against Nebraska that Iowa would miss a field goal to possibly win a football game?
Right. You get the turnover, you get the field goal attempt, and they don't pull an Iowa Sharpie.
Yeah. And then, Phil Parker took a chance with the all-out blitz on the play that ends up in a touchdown. And, I think Phil Parker is great, and he'd probably do it again. It just Indiana made a good play and a little bit of a breakdown. And I think that's a big win for Iowa or Indiana to go into Iowa City, because Iowa played a little bit better than they had been playing. But we got now 2 weeks when Indiana goes all the way out to Eugene to play Oregon. And we'll see where the 2025 Hoosiers are, because that's on the road against a team that will speed that game up. But I think another thing about yesterday, and this includes Nebraska and includes Michigan State, who Nebraska is a 10.5-point favorite against. The Big Ten is in a great spot with quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is turning into a really good quarterback league. And we can talk about quarterbacks, and we don't even talk about the guy that's at UCLA, which I think is great for the league.
Well, and that's a shift. It's a shift, and it's been part of the additions, right? You go get the newbies to the Big Ten, but you have had a concentration by your programs to go get difference makers at quarterback with Michigan and what they did with Underwood. And it's a no-brainer, but to want to go get that game changer at quarterback. The difference is that you landed them, right? And that's what's super, super key. Mendoza's a great example of portal evaluation, and you get him. Nebraska's got 2 quarterbacks you feel really good about. More with what he did at Oregon, his change of scenery from UCLA. Maeva played well. Altmaier. So yeah, the quarterbacks in this era of Big Ten football, you got to go back a lot of years to say, well, remember the time the Big Ten was the quarterback league? Right now, they have so many difference makers. I want to get your take real quick, fellas, before we jump into some Nebraska stuff. Are you surprised at Alabama, or had you written them off? They won at Georgia last night, 24-21, and good on Kalen DeBoer and his crew getting better. That was major. They also get Vandy, I think, here in a week or two.
Let it be known, I picked Bama.
I know you were right. You were absolutely right.
Yeah, you know what? They get Vandy this weekend, so that's a year after the upset, and game day is going to be So game day wanted to do what? Miami, Florida State. And once the Noles got beat Friday night, that was out the window. So Vandy, Alabama is a game day location in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Kirby Smart might have an Alabama problem. He couldn't beat Saban, and now he's 0-2 against DeBoer. The one thing that was really impressive about last night is how prepared Alabama was from the jump.
Mhm.
Like, they had a game plan and they stuck to it, and they knew it would be a heavyweight fight. And good for Alabama, because people can be a little quiet this week about DeBoer, because that's an impressive win to go into Sanford Stadium. But I also think we need to talk about Georgia a little bit. Like Georgia's still a really good football team, but we hear the word great attached to Georgia. That doesn't feel like a great Georgia team. Their defensive line is not as mauling as they've been. Kirby's lost some games as a favorite, and that's the first time in 34 games they've lost at home.
The two longest home winning streaks in the country
Yeah.
both ended yesterday with Washington and Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, that's wild. I think where Georgia is at this year goes back to the point I made earlier. This is fun. We got some parity in college football. We do not have a definitive national champion right now. Like going into October, we go, that's the odds-on favorite. They're going to win the national championship. Have fun getting to 12 to play in the playoff this year, because this just feels like there will be a couple of teams that have a really good case that will all go, ooh. If it continues this way for the next 6, 7, 8 weeks, I love where college football is at right now.
It's wide open. It's wide
That's it.
open. It's week to week, and it's good schedules. And somebody will be able to tame Ohio State theoretically. Someone will be able to tame Oregon because of their schedules. It's not just 1 or 2 games they got to prove themselves and then they coast. I mean, it's going to be a week in, week out fight. And I had forgotten that Indiana was on Oregon's schedule, but that's major. That's going to be a lot of fun to see. So Nebraska's got their part too, because you've got teams that have been wounded a time or two already still on their schedule. Do they, Nebraska's going to have that to deal with here moving forward as the season progresses.
Well, keep in mind, Nebraska beat Cincinnati, who's been rolling since Nebraska beat Cincinnati, and their quarterback actually looks pretty good. Just a couple thoughts. I'm thinking, what would Georgia look like if they had a different guy at quarterback, maybe that they were expecting to be there, and not Gunnar Stockton? What if
the guy who threw for 130 yards last night? Yeah.
Yeah. What if the guy that they had committed to that class had been the quarterback? I don't know. I'm just saying. Look, when it comes to Kalen DeBoer and Georgia, the biggest loser of that game, without question, is Hugh Freeze. I mean, that dude got kicked south of the border in both sides of the sack, with their performance at Texas A&M, right? And
that's a visual.
I mean, their performance at Texas A&M was shockingly embarrassing and uncompetitive. And then for Kalen DeBoer to rise up out of the ashes of this guy's got to go to probably getting a lifetime contract this morning, and to do what he did at Georgia yesterday. I mean, Hugh Freeze is in trouble at Auburn based just on yesterday. That was awful football in College Station. And then for Alabama to win at Georgia, they're ready to get rid of him. I mean, the coaching carousel is we talked about it yesterday, is just on warp speed. Sam Pittman at Arkansas. Hugh Freeze is going to be in trouble. I'm sure there's a couple other guys that are a mess. I know Penn State Sports Talk doesn't think that James Franklin's in trouble at Penn State, but they're not going to continue to have those looks of astonishment after a loss on a whiteout. That's going to be unacceptable. But God bless Kalen DeBoer for doing what he did to Auburn yesterday.
Good call with Cincinnati. That was an impressive win at KU.
That was one of the wilder games of the day.
Oh, it's
back
points
and forth, and
points forever.
Jalen Daniels is dealing. Keep an eye. Cincinnati hasn't lost since they got beat by Nebraska. They have Iowa State in Cincinnati this upcoming weekend. And Iowa State, who, man, they look good. The Clones look good, especially with Rocco at quarterback. They're only a 2-point favorite on the road at Cincinnati.
Okay.
That's a sneaky game next weekend.
Well, and Cincinnati also did the SJ without Dante Corleone. He was
Mhm.
on the sideline. There was one play. Kansas should have probably won that football game. They fumbled on the 1 yard line. It gets ripped out in the 1. Cincinnati takes control and they go win that football game. But they did that without Corleone, who we talked about it after Arrowhead. Maybe the best interior defensive lineman in the country. Cincinnati did it without him yesterday.
That Big 12 football, mistakes, crazy games, clock management, UCF going to Manhattan and getting beat,
And Lane Kiffin was great. Calling out his girlfriend, his daughter's boyfriend, if he had the overs or whatever that was.
Well, he asked him, is he coming over tonight?
Yeah. Hey, they how about the quarterback that they have? He was playing at Ferris State.
Yeah.
And now he's balling out. Here,
He's
you
good
know what?
ball
I look at that. I look at LSU and, LSU, when they asked Kiffin about the field storming, which we had some epic storming of the fields this weekend. I mean, I think there's some Florida State guys that are still buried under the turf in Charlottesville after the Virginia, which was an epic field storming. His comment about, who's going to pay the fine. And he goes, well, it's still half of what they're paying for that defensive back when he was pointing to LSU. Is Brian Kelly Jimbo Fisher without a title?
Yeah.
I'll say this. When I think of Jimbo, and I know Jimbo was a Saban guy and a OC, and I mean that's where Jimbo kind of got knighted, right? Was from the Saban tree. So I look at Brian Kelly and just everywhere he's been and how well he's won. He just hasn't won now at LSU. He got him to a spot in position to win at Notre Dame. I mean, he got him to the playoff and he got him to a college football national title game. So I think he's better. I think he's better than Jimbo. I mean, Jimbo's had, one really good quarterback, Jameis.
There it is.
Yeah, the other Dave, you're fine with
I think
that.
there's a lot of similarities between those two.
Yeah.
They're just not. Yeah, they're not likable.
Yeah, it's just the one. I'm sure I don't. I doubt that Brian Kelly's wife is dating somebody from the University of Florida, like Jimbo's wife was when he was at Florida State.
Jeez.
Wow. I was living there. It was a fantastic story. They trolled the hell out of Jimbo Fisher because his wife was having. I think they were separated or either they were divorced. She was dating somebody very young from Florida. Yeah.
Good for her.
Hey, that's football. That's football in the South, baby.
Can you see they're in the carpool lane to pick up their kid, and Jimbo and her get their calendar screwed up so they're both there the same day, and Mama's just in the driver's seat going like this. I mean,
hey, hey, women in football in the South. Let me tell a quick story here because this is a good Sunday story as people are coming home from church. A good friend of all three of ours who used to be at Alabama and now he's at a different school told this story about Lane Kiffin when Kiffin was at Bama, and they went to a big booster function in Birmingham, and they brought one of the Alabama players, and Lane's, I guess you would call him his girlfriend, but he was involved in a relationship, but he had a girlfriend, and he brought his girlfriend, and they had a dais where they were sitting up front. And so Kiffin was speaking, and he was introducing everybody up there. So he introduced the Alabama player, and then Kiffin's side piece, he introduced him as the player's girlfriend. The player has a girlfriend.
oh no.
He didn't want people to think that lady was with him.
So he threw his own player under the bus.
Yeah, and all hell broke loose because people are like, "Oh my God, he's dating such and such back in Tuscaloosa." Just a side note.
I love
But who? Hey, by the way, as we go into the month of October, who would have thunk? And I think I'm right about this. The only unbeaten team on Nebraska's schedule that is left is Maryland.
Right?
And they get them on the road in 2 weeks.
I saw a buddy yesterday,
Wow.
and they pick a game to go to each year on the road. They'll do a Nebraska game and then an NFL game. And old Nader is they're going to go to Maryland, and then they're going to go see the Ravens. I got it that same weekend. But you want to just kind of pay no mind to Maryland, and then you realize that Loxley can recruit talent. He's had some quarterbacks before, and their skill guys do go get picked in the NFL, and some of their defensive backs. So they're back
They got a
7
nice-
players.
They got a nice young quarterback.
Uh-huh.
Take it back to Big Ten Media Days. Mike Loxley dealt with a bit of a transfer portal exodus last offseason.
Uh-huh.
And we thought Maryland was going to be bad. And he said it at Big Ten Media Days. He essentially said we had guys that were in the locker room last year that didn't want to be playing for Maryland. The locker room was fractured. We think a younger team of guys that actually want to play for Maryland are going to come together, be better in the locker room, be willing to lay it all out in the field. And I personally was like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. He was right.
Yeah.
He's got a team of guys that actually want to play for Maryland. He's got a team of guys that are willing to lay it on the line, and they're good. Yeah.
Well, they've so up until yesterday, because they were on a bye this weekend, they were leading the nation in sacks. They have a freshman that has 6.5 sacks, I believe, but that's for 2 weeks away. Are you guys surprised that the line that just opened is Nebraska is a 10.5 point favorite for Saturday in Lincoln?
Wow.
Against
I had not
Michigan
heard
State.
that.
I think that's yes. I thought I saw it somewhere at 11.5, but 10.5. It's going to get down to 8.5, and it'll probably be you know what? You do your job, you win by 10, and you don't stress or you have game control. You don't do your job. I mean, you're fighting a 4-quarter ball game with those fellas because they've had a chance to get better and heal up and, focus in on what they did well against USC because they were back and forth until USC quit messing around. So does that seem high to you? Do you think it's about a touchdown ball game, or do you think it's a 10 to 13 pointer?
Well, I thought probably 6.5 to 7.
Yeah.
Right.
And it could come down. I think you look at the metrics like Michigan State defensively compared to what Nebraska is offensively, and that kind of ups it a little bit. But what is it? 5 straight times this has been a 1-score game between these two teams.
Yeah.
And what Michigan State, they're won 4 of the last 6, I believe, against
I think
Nebraska.
the last time you beat them, it was snowing, and you kicked a field goal 9-6.
Yeah, and then the time before that is Brendan Riley out of bounds or not when they beat a really good Michigan State team in Riley's first year?
2015. Yeah.
That seems like a really high number for two teams that are in the 6 to 12 range of the 18-team Big Ten. I could understand if it was Oregon Elite against Purdue bottom of the barrel, you'd see something like that. But for probably middle road Big Ten teams to have a double-digit spread, this seems shocking to me.
Here's the other thing that looks interesting. We'll know about Washington, and we'll know about Maryland because Washington's going to have to bounce back. They had it juiced up and ready to go, and their offense completely sputtered. And a lot of that's Ohio State yesterday. But now Washington's got to go cross country this weekend and play at Maryland. I mean, that's a tough spot if you're Washington, and you love it if you're Maryland to try and keep putting points on the board. The old Fighting Flex found a way, didn't they? I mean,
Beat Rutgers, 31-28?
They're at Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah,
Penn State gets to go feel better. They're at UCLA.
Well, I think like if you're doing this from the Nebraska perspective, and we can do this here, what team opinion changed for the better or the worse? Like you're thinking Nebraska's chances are better after watching them play this weekend, or they're for
I think UCLA got beat, so I mean they're buried. I mean they're not great. SC to me is still very frightening. I was impressed by Iowa.
But yeah, SC should have gotten that. That game shouldn't have been close at the end.
Should have been two touchdowns.
Yeah,
It
I
should
mean,
have
you
been
fumble
Illinois
the ball at the inch line, and you fumble the ball in the end zone. I mean, Illinois, for the most part, I thought manhandled USC, and USC with Maeva is a great quarterback, kept him in the game, and they took advantage enough to still be in it at the end. But for the most part, that game should have been decided by the fourth quarter.
I look at both of their lines of scrimmage, and I know Nebraska doesn't play Illinois, but their lines of scrimmage look different.
Did that not kind of feel like the Michigan and Nebraska game where Illinois was Michigan and USC was Nebraska?
A little bit.
That's kind of how I felt watching that football game, of just like, man, how is this such a close game? How is USC still in this with as well as Illinois was running the football all game?
Yeah. I think SC's explosive, you know that, but I think that's going to be a crazy environment for Nebraska and for Iowa to do their job and make that thing should have been an overtime deal, but credit Indiana to make some plays.
I took Nebraska to, in our whatever happened to the spreadsheet, but anyway, I don't think didn't think Nebraska would beat USC, and even though they lost yesterday, and watching that game, I don't think Nebraska beats USC. I think there are a lot of teams that probably respect Nebraska more than they have in the past, but as I'm watching those elite teams last night and Ohio State yesterday afternoon, I don't think anybody fears Nebraska. So going forward, you have Maryland is going to be looking to make its mark and prove that it's better. Minnesota is going to try to maintain superiority. I think that's probably a pretty evenly matched game that Nebraska can win on the road. But teams like SC with that athleticism and that kind of quarterback, I'm not sure that Nebraska has a chance to win that game.
I think it just reiterated yesterday that there are two teams that separate themselves at the top. Then there's the 1B tier where Indiana is starting to pay rent, and we'll see what happens to Penn State. But the meaty middle of the Big Ten, that kind of probably starts with Michigan and then USC, and Nebraska's part of that. It just shows anything can happen in the Big Ten on a Saturday. Like, you have to come ready to play. But I also think it starts now where Nebraska needs to show progress as the season goes along. Like, what if Nebraska is the same team that we saw in Arrowhead that we'll see at the Rose Bowl in the middle of November? I mean, we'll be disappointed, greatly disappointed. So that's the thing, like, from this weekend to the upcoming weekend is, does Nebraska look different? Yeah. They're not going to all of a sudden change everything schematically, but I'm saying, are players making progress along the way? Because every week's going to be a challenge. I know, I keep bringing up Maryland because it's just quirky. Nebraska doesn't play there regularly. You don't play Maryland every single year. It's your first true road game. So, most guys, they bus to Kansas City, flew home. Now they're going to fly halfway across the country. We don't know when that start time is going to be. You'll hear about, can Nebraska handle coming back from Maryland and they play Minnesota on a short week? But with Nebraska this year, you can't take anybody for granted. Whether it's a 10.5-point favorite this weekend, Nebraska has to take care of Nebraska, because where they're at in that middle, that's a really good part to be in this conference.
Do you worry about Nebraska going into that take for granted mode? I don't. And that's just based on what I've seen. I think there's the level of focus and respect. I don't think Nebraska thinks they're above anybody. There's past Nebraska teams that, as bad as they were, showed up and thought they could roll their helmet out on the field and win.
Yeah, which is why I think it was so important to have a bye week this week. They kept talking about, we want to play next week and right the wrongs of Michigan. And Rule rightfully said in his presser on Monday that, with people said we're a player or two away. And he said, I showed my players 45 plays on Sunday. And he's right. That game probably should not have been a 3-point game. And I think we all kind of felt that way, much like Illinois and USC yesterday. But by having the week off and, to get after it a little bit and go through schematically and personnel wise, who are our players? What do we do best? What can we not do? And to be able to take inventory after a game like Michigan and then get ready for Michigan State and what you have in October. If they'd been able to play this week and, we're just going to right all the wrongs and it'll be okay, I don't think that would have been healthy. I think the best thing for Nebraska was to not play yesterday and take a look at themselves and realize, what? We do need to set our sights on that game in Maryland, where who knows who's going to be there. The atmosphere at Maryland has never been one that anybody fears, other than it's kind of quiet like a Purdue game, which can be a real trap. So I think for Nebraska, the best thing was you have that loss, you have time to regroup, take inventory yourselves, look at yourselves and say, who's with us going forward and how are we going to go forward, and not be able to just gloss over it with another game and you beat Michigan State by 7 and then you continue on. I don't think that would have been good at all.
Well, the thing is we were talking about this October slate preseason as look at that. Nebraska can go undefeated in October. If Nebraska doesn't make progress from the Michigan game, they're not going undefeated in October.
Exactly.
Agreed.
As we probably should have expected. October looks more difficult right now than it did preseason. Michigan State, Aiden Childs, he's eliminated some of the boneheaded throwing decisions. I mean, his issue was never the arm talent. His issue was the decisions he made with the football. He put it into harm's way a lot. He looks better in that regard now for Michigan State. So Michigan State looks a little bit more dangerous because the guy they got at quarterback. Same thing about Maryland. I mean, they got a dude at quarterback. More talented football team than we probably thought, but that team looks like a problem. And then credit to Minnesota. Their top 2 running backs are out, and they go still get a win. I know Rutgers isn't great, but that's a culture win for Michigan.
Drake Lindsay looked okay. Yeah. Hey, well, can you imagine if Nebraska had their 2 top running backs out for a game?
I can imagine one.
Who's the second one that would be out?
That's what I'm saying.
That would be I don't know. So let's just play that Emmett and Mekhi Nelson would be out. Would Mosey be your
back?
Maybe Quentin Ives.
Or would you just run power and Harburg would be in the backfield?
It'd be empty, 5 wide empty.
Sharpie. Like the one thing about the bye week going into Michigan State, and I don't think Nebraska is nowhere near a position to overlook anybody. They haven't started to stack things where they're like, okay, you know what, we can roll our helmets out on the field and we're going to be up at least a field goal, unlike the past where they were up 10 points. Is what do they look differently this week? Like, I think, and I advocated for this right after the Michigan game. Pritchett at left tackle, Gatula at right tackle. Demetrius Bell they're ramping him back up. Like, are they gonna have a couple of different guys in different spots that get more snaps? But I think the offensive line, I think Pritchett at left tackle, Gatula at right tackle right now is your best outside guys, and live with whatever Pritchett gives you, because when he's on, he's your best lineman. And you know what? Maybe he goes to the coaches and goes, I was watching my former teammate last night, Caden Proctor. Yo, Dana, Holgo, how about throwing me a pass?
And Dana looks at him, shoots did you just call me Hogo? How about not jumping off sides, son? Let's make a deal. You don't false start at the 2-yard line, we may find a 2-point play for you. But no, I think you're right about the offensive line. I want to see Nwaneri and I want to see Davis. Okay. I want to see those guys continue to get better, but I want to see them flying. I want to see the Keona Davis I saw last year. You know how good he looked at USC, was just racing around. And I want to see those 2 guys really be important Saturday, not only from a tackles standpoint, but even an assisted standpoint, but just they're going to be really, really key because of Childs and his mobility. They're going to need to harass him. He's a quarterback that's got all sorts of athleticism, but he is, you can rattle him and you can force him into some mistakes. So I want to see Nebraska's two young end guys be there this Saturday. I also want to see Gabe Moore. He's been a nice anchor in the middle for the Nebraska defense. So you're right about the offensive line. I think next week's important for Nebraska's defense to respond and get some TFLs, make some tackles, really fly to the football.
But I mean, I'd say the one thing Nebraska has, and I kind of talked about this before the show, is we can talk about the defense. They're going to need to improve through the month of October. But as you watch college football yesterday, one of the things I think really helps Nebraska is how many quarterbacks in college football are you taking over Dylan Raiola as it stands right now?
Not many. And that's not a butt kiss take. It's the guy really proved himself against a fierce defense and kept his composure. They weren't empty calories. They were throws and plays made in a game you were down, but you weren't out of. So he's right there. I mean, Oregon's quarterback made some plays, but Oregon didn't win last night because of their quarterback per se, but he didn't hurt it. We know what happened with Penn State. Quarterback can lose you the game. You need to perform better and perform under pressure. And I thought you had a chance to see Dylan perform under pressure at a high level last week. There's not many quarterbacks out there. I mean, Georgia, right, Elijah? Their quarterback wasn't incredible. You got Bama's quarterback played well, but who else is out there?
Based on what I saw, if it's a 1-game sample size, Ty Simpson looked really good for Bama.
Yeah.
I thought Dante Moore looked good for Oregon. Julian Sain looked really good for Ohio State.
Altmaier looked good. Maeva looked good.
Altmaier looked good.
Yeah.
I
think
I don't think I'm taking Altmaier or Maeva over Raiola. They look good, but I don't think that what I saw was like, man,
they're willing runners though. That's the whole thing that separates him from the really good to great college quarterbacks is the willingness to run, and he can spring a 9-yard gain every now and then, but the others are at least a weapon. Maybe not weapon; it's too strong of a word, but there is an effective runner at quarterback for those other teams. I think Dylan Raiola is going to be a great professional quarterback, probably better suited for the pro game than any other quarterback in college football. But for the college game, the willingness to run, Aller's 3rd down and 9, run up the middle to go get that first down on that long drive. That's what separates him and others like him from Dylan. Is just that is a possibility that they could take off and run effectively.
Yeah. I think, all this discussion, you also have to bring in the offensive coordinator, the type of offense they play in. It's comforting to have a discussion where the quarterback isn't the issue at Nebraska.
No,
it's not.
You don't have to worry about it from Saturday to Saturday. And I think, because if you don't have a quarterback, and we look at some shoddy quarterback plays, yesterday and kind of around college football, man, you're in trouble. I mean, makes the world go round, and, Nebraska's got their quarterback. And so we just worry about other things. And you just hope that Dylan continues to grow and continues to do what he needs to do in the scope of the offense. And, maybe in the transition of looking back at Michigan, maybe there's some things they do differently in their offense, with their wide receivers, getting the ball out quicker. Maybe they take more shots downfield. Maybe that opens up. I think they probably did a lot of self-scouting in the bye week just to kind of figure out some tweaks here and there and then let it rip. This upcoming Saturday feels to me like a 38-24 type game.
Yeah, very fair.
Kind
of a little more points. Michigan State's not going to come in here intimidated. They can put some points up. And, Nebraska will need to keep pace with the points, but eventually find a way to get your stops defensively. And that's my big thing. I know the sacks and TFLs are very real as Nebraska's trying to correct from what Michigan did. But it's also, what was What was Nebraska doing? How much did they affect the opposing offense against Michigan? And the answer is not great. I mean, they had a few 3 and outs, right? But you didn't force a turnover. You didn't clamp down on the explosives. You missed a ton of tackles. I think they missed 8 tackles. And those were one-on-one tackle situations where it would have gotten you off the field and you got your offense the ball back. So can they be better moving forward? For sure Saturday, but I mean, I like the personnel on this defense. I love the athleticism. Can they just be a little bit tougher and more sound, probably more so than the toughness question against the run? Because they're going to see some teams that are going to do 2 things to them. They're going to be able – look at how good Illinois looked yesterday throwing the football, running the football. They were balanced. You're going to see some more teams on your schedule like that if you're Nebraska, and you better be able to be good at stopping both.
I want to go back to real quick what we're talking about Raiola and the off week and something that Gary alluded to teasing at the end of the show yesterday. What have they done in the off week to get Demetrius Bell into the game planning? Because it is expected that he will play on Saturday. I heard the same thing last week, and Gary mentioned it. And what kind of use will they get out of him? Can they use him a lot? How does he get into that rotation with Key and Hunter and all the other receivers? That to me is going to be fascinating that he's actually coming back this season and coming back this weekend.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're going to get out of him. But if he's healthy, at some point you got to get him out there to see what you have. I also would like to see, now that they're through 4 games and everybody's kind of gotten a taste, I'd like to see more Cortez Mills.
Yeah.
Like him on the field in more key situations, or just on the field more, because I think he gives you something, and now he's gotten a taste of college football and the speed. And can they find a way to incorporate him into the offense? And also, can they find a way to incorporate more targets for Key and Hunter combined? I think those have to ramp up. Jacory's going to get his in the uniqueness that he provides for the offense, but I think the targets for Key and Hunter need to increase.
Well, there's got to be a point at some time this season that Raiola's just got to look at Key and Hunter and say, we got one-on-one coverage on the outside. I'm going to let my guy go make a play. That is the one thing you'd like to see a little more from Raiola, is the trust in the wide receivers to say, you know what, if it's you one-on-one with the defensive back, and I'm not talking at the 5-yard line because I am sick and tired of the fade route. That's the only time you see it. But at some point, there's got to be the look we have is Dane Key one-on-one on the outside. Let's send him deep, put one up there, screw the completion percentage. Let's let the wide receiver go try to make a play because we like what we have. I like Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter in one-on-one coverage. I like Nebraska's chances to go up and make a play with those 2 guys. I don't know if the quarterback feels the same way. That is one of the sticking points I have with Raiola, is you don't want him to put the ball in danger. I get that. But also at some point you have to look at your wide receivers and say, I trust my guy more than I trust your guy. So go make a play. And you don't see that much from him.
Well, moving forward, hopefully you'll see the work of the bye week pay off with your high red zone. No more field goals or missed opportunities in the red zone. You got to be perfect point-wise moving forward. You can't go scoreless, fellas, in the red zone on opening trips against ranked teams or late in the game against Iowa on Black Friday. Can they? That was a focus, right? I mean, they talked about personnel. They talked about the tackle spot. They talked about defense and tackling. They talked about the running back spot, but they also talked about, because, Dana's probably losing it, rightfully so. That wears him out if they can't score. He knows that his job's to get that team to nail it inside the red zone. They've done a hell of a job getting there a lot this year. The percentages just aren't good.
Well, I think it comes back to, can they run the football?
Right.
Can you run the football in the red zone?
Do you trust it? Can you trust being able to run it? And then are you willing to try and run it? So.
Well, I think if you looked at outside of that fade that they ran, in the opening drive last Saturday, I think they want to tell you that they trust the offensive line, because if not,
They're calling it. Yeah.
they probably would have kicked a field goal on 4th down.
No, I know
Yeah.
they do trust the O-line. The play call is throwing it in. And listen, I'm not adamant that they have to line up in the Maryland I with 3 backs in a double tight formation and power it in. Just find a way to get into the end zone. I don't care. But
well, maybe moving forward, all the discussion when they are at 3rd down and 2, that's the Heine push or whatever we're going to call it. And he bulldozes and gets you 2 yards, and Dillon, who was split out on the play, comes back under center, and away they go with a 1st down. Because I thought they would use that against Michigan, because they've developed a pass off of it as well. Where they get everybody bunched in and a tight end leaks out and Harburg hits him with a little dump off. But I think that's an effective play on 3rd down and 2 or 4th and 1, to help that offensive line. Like, do we, I think we're going to find out right away that did Nebraska's tackles have a Michigan problem, or did Nebraska's tackles have a problem, period. And I think we'll know by how much Turner Corcoran plays moving forward. And I'm not saying he's dislodging one of the tackles, but he's been used as the extra blocker.
right.
How much does Lindenmeyer stay in? How much do they chip? All of those kind of things.
Well,
I'm willing to say that it was a Michigan problem, but again, Fool's Gold, Akron, Houston Christian. So again, the off week for that offensive line, part of the inventory. Which team is it? I mean, they were pretty effective against Cincinnati for the most part. But the 2 games leading up to Michigan were not good tests to prepare them for that game. So I'm willing to say, not that it matters what I think, that it's more so who they played than who's playing for them right now. Anyway,
fellas, we'll get ready, do it again, and have thoughts on next Saturday with the weekend edition for Nebraska, Michigan. That's a 3:00 kickoff for Nebraska and Sparty. And then Sunday live, a week from today, 10:30, we'll recap Nebraska and Michigan State. More of a football party today, fellas.
One more thing here, which I'm not. What has anything happened in Dublin in the NFL game that it was worth watching? Has anyone been following along with that?
No, it's 24-14. Minnesota just got the ball back. The Steelers went for it on 4th down, didn't convert, but there's only 3:29 to go.
Okay. Yeah.
Has there been one of those games over there since the NFL's gone to Ireland and Germany and Brazil and Mexico, where you go, oh yeah, that was a great game?
There was 2 years ago. There was Dolphins Chiefs. I can't remember if that was in England.
That was in Germany.
That was a good one. That's about the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, are the ratings up through the roof? People getting up at 4:00 in the morning to tailgate for their favorite NFL team playing their games over. I mean, I know Goodell said we're all in on this, and I know the Germany game sold out in like 2 hours, but yeah. Nobody ever talks about these games.
So Schmidt, so they announced 75,000 at this game. When you were in Dublin, do you ever remember seeing this stadium? Because it's not the same stadium that Nebraska and Northwestern played in.
The Aer Lingus Stadium, we were in a soccer joint.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of outside in the Hoth region, which is a little bit of a seaside village outside of Dublin, not too far from, it really wasn't that bad, maybe 10, 12 minutes to get to the place where Nebraska played. But no, I didn't. And I didn't really tour Dublin when I was there. I mean, we hit the vicinity. Yeah, Mary Cobbler, the vicinity where we were at, and then just kind of stayed out in with the folks we were staying with. So no, I have no background, but this is huge. What?
Jordan Addison just got caught from behind. He's down at the 1. The Vikings are about to score. So they have 75,000, but let's be honest. You're asking Bill, are they up at 4 a.m. to tailgate? The Euros ain't paying attention.
No,
to
I
this
mean
game.
like
they're
fans
paying
of their own
attention.
teams here in the U.S. getting ready to.
It
watch
looks
that
like
team.
it does. It does look like it looks like every international game. Like there's an assortment of every team in the NFL. There's jerseys in the stands. I guess because the Vikings stay over there. The Vikings play there this weekend. Then they go to London. Appears to be a lot of Steelers and Vikings fans, and the Steelers with Mr. Rooney and him being an official government ambassador to Ireland. They have a big foothold there. But let's be honest. All of those people over there are paying attention to what's going on our soil at Bethpage because they're kicking our ass in golf in the Ryder Cup, which is currently 12-5 after Hovland had a bounce.
You don't have to look further than the putting. Europe's been able to putt despite how nasty the American fans have been, which has been embarrassing. Can I say that? The American fans, the New York City folks, have been absolutely embarrassing in this tournament for the folks of the US of A. It's been terrible. Despite some of the abuse that these European players are getting when they're standing over putts, they have been drilling them from like 15 feet away, and the U.S. can't hit a putt from 6 feet.
Some of us had problems yesterday putting.
Did you have somebody heckling you?
No, I should have.
Drive for show, putt for dough has been real in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, this is a bad one.
Oh, they got god-awful hats today.
That's what I care about because I'm out on the golf at this point. The U.S. ain't coming back.
I don't know. I mean, you never know. It's 12-5. They could have a hell of a run here in singles.
They would need to win all but 2 of them.
Well, because the Euros have to get 13.5. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's happening. I was going to say though, my one more thing was, how about a former Lincoln Southeast Knight making some plays last night for the Oregon Ducks?
Tuioti?
Tatum Tuioti. We didn't talk about him enough whenever he was at Lincoln Southeast. And he went a little under-recruited, but goes off to Oregon and balls out for his final year of high school. Goes off to Oregon. What a dude they got.
Yeah, Dad had a draft pick, at the family table. And, Tuioti would have ended up in Lincoln had Dad not took off. But Dad has quietly shoved a first-round pick into the NFL draft from the Oregon defensive line the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had 3 guys drafted. They've had multiples drafted. So Tuioti's really good at what he does.
Hey, by the way, Elijah, Bryson just absolutely crushed it over the trees and onto the green on 1. Here we go, USA.
He can't wait to watch him 3-putt it.
Okay, true. There's another like Nebraska couldn't have held on to Tony White a little bit longer. He's got a son that's going to be a player as well. I mean, you got to be able to read the room before these guys, leave. You're like, hey, can you just stay? Your son will keep you around for a few years. Your son can go to school here, play college football.
Instead of recruiting that game wrecker, the game wreckers lives down the hall and just put them there. That was rough for Florida State, man. That was a tough spot. Look ahead Friday night.
For James Williams.
That was bad. Husker fans have been nasty to him, so I don't have much more commentary on that. Besides that, Gary, I want to ask you: was it a touchdown in the back of the end zone for Florida State with their wide receiver bobbling it? Was that a touchdown?
No. But the ACC, the ACC had I love that they have transparency with their review room, but they had a bad weekend. They just come out and said in the Georgia Tech Wake Forest game, Wake Forest got screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got to stay in Winston-Salem.
I do respect Wake Forest going for 2 in overtime, though. I do respect that.
I don't know about that. Come on, you got a chance to tie, go to another overtime. This isn't the 84 Orange Bowl. Like, just you got a chance to win the game. Continue on. You're at home. Come on.
So, Bill, I assume you don't want to hear about the analytics with that decision.
I know. No student will come to my office and want to talk analytics with me. So yeah, we don't talk analytics.
Did I see it right that Colorado was up 2 scores on BYU?
14-3 for a while.
Yeah,
They lost that.
The
2-3 now. The Buffs now 2-3.
BYU's one on the road.
I've been saying it for a bit. If you're Colorado, at some point you got to figure out what you have in Juju Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, you already know what you have in your head coach. He just game clock management was an issue again last night for them.
It's bad.
Since we're going around the horn here, and our one last thing, Missouri is 5-0, has not played a road game. Their next game is at home against Alabama. What, on the 11th? 6 consecutive home games to open up the season for Missouri. And they got 8 total home games this season, but
That's
6 in a
incredible.
row to open up. And the next one is a week off. Then they play Alabama.
But they don't have Georgia, their schedule's pretty good too, isn't it?
They go to Auburn, and I've already talked about Auburn. They go to Vandy, A&M, Mississippi State, and at Oklahoma and at Arkansas. Who knows will be the head coach at Arkansas when that game rolls around.
I like old Pittman
Anyway.
as an O-line coach, though. He's good.
6 straight home games to begin the season, and they're in the top 15. All right.
Sharpie, Bill, Elijah, it's been a party this morning. Everyone in the stream, we thank you kindly for hanging out with the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show.
Can I ask one more thing?
No.
I
Like
have a
and
good one.
subscribe on YouTube with the Average Joe Sports Show. Find us on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. Catch Gary with Gary and Matt. 6 to 10 weekdays on the Zone in Omaha. Find us Monday through Friday with the Average Joe Sports Show 4 to 6 on KFOR and the Average Joe Network. Go ahead, Elijah.
Quick question for the room here. Around the horn. The best team in college football right now is who?
Ohio State.
I got to go Ohio State, their defense.
Ohio State 1A, 1B.5 Miami.
Really?
I'm with you on Miami. I think Miami's really good. I think Ohio State, based on what they've shown in that defense yesterday, is probably my top pick. But yeah, I like Miami too, unfortunately.
Miami, Oregon would be a hell of a game.
Then maybe we'll see it.
That would be interesting for Cristobal.
Yeah, it would.
Mm-hmm.
That's no Ohio State with what they did, man, against that Washington offense. They're too good.
Yeah. It's there's the parity in college football at the top, man. This is going to be fun. The playoff rankings when the first time will be fascinating to see where they think of people. But it was a great night in college football, man. That sport always delivers.
It was good. We'll talk next time here with the Average Joes, and appreciate you tuning in. See you.